Good morning, everyone. It is 8:01 on a Saturday, and I don't normally make dream journal videos, but this one was just so interesting that I wanted to talk about it. So, I'm just going to go through the story of the dream and then do my analysis of what it means. So, let's jump right into it. So, some other random stuff happened in the dream involving a Ferris wheel, a creepy old man, and a bunch of electronics. But then we find our way to the relevant part of the dream with an actual plot and story. So I was a teenager again, maybe like 16, maybe. And you know, on those cruise ships where they have like those teen clubs where all the teenagers can hang out? I was on something like that. Not necessarily on a cruise ship, but just in a club of teenagers where we're hanging out just socially. And I was with a bunch of other teenagers, ages like 13 to 17. And we were on this like teen dating show. Sort of like Love Island, but without all the raunchy stuff. So we were trying to find our like ideal partner, or at the very least have some fun. And the host was this like, he is based on one of my old coworkers. He is this tall, like, I'm sorry if you're my former coworker and you're hearing this, but he's this tall redhead with a beard and long curly hair and with glasses, and he had this nice sweater on. He was a very performative male. But he got it going on. But anyway, that was our host. He was an adult. All the rest of us were just teenagers having some fun. And so all of us contestants are pretty much normal people, right? Except for this one person who looks quite younger and weirder than everybody else. She looks like a real life doll. Like, you could still get a sense that she's a teenager, but she does look quite a bit younger than everybody else. She had very heavy makeup on. She had short, I think the term is like bob. Well, it's like short, curly hair. You know what I mean? And she had the weirdest part about her was this facial expression. She'd look at everything as if she was an actual doll. She'd look like this. And her facial expression wouldn't change at all. And her name was Bella. So Bella was definitely the standout in this competition. And she made me uncomfortable, and I think everybody else thought she was hella weird as well. So in the dream, we actually just time skip over the first challenge. Sup, y'all? I'm actually recording this after I recorded the entirety of the entirety of the dream and my analysis of it. But I forgot to mention there's this scene near the beginning of the dream where all of us contestants were gathered round. It was one of the games that we were playing. It was this game where I think we'd all have these stuffed animals. And I think us and a partner were taking turns talking via the stuffed animal. So like one person would be holding this big old stuffed animal that was like the size of like 60% of our bodies. So we'd just be hugging it and then talking to our partner. And then we'd pass it to them. And we'd all be on this like big old couch or out in other parts of the room. And it would just be this cozy, fluffy, fun time. But Bella, I think she struggled on this part of the game. She didn't really talk very much. So the host went out of his way to actually be her partner. He talked with the stuffed animal and she talked with the stuffed animal. Except she didn't really talk at all. She just held it. They both held the stuffed animal though. But anyway, instead of really focusing on my own conversation, which was like fun and generally good, according to my dream, My dream was a lot more focused on the dynamic between Bella and the host, with her just being this porcelain doll caricature and the host doing his best to give her a good time. So that's that scene. So, in the end, all of us teenagers are coupled up except for Bella. And the host comes over to Bella with a somber expression and he says, Bella, because you are the only one left single here, you have been eliminated. And then her mask just falls off. She goes ballistic. She starts bawling, she starts crying, she starts running all over the place. She starts crying really loudly. And all of the rest of us are just in the room, just standing there quietly. And she's jumping around everywhere. I think there was a bed in the room for some reason. Not that we'd sleep in there, but would we? I don't know. I didn't see the rest of the dream. Like I said, there was a time skip between the introduction of the contestants in the show and this point. And then she while she's crying, she jumps on the bed and slides on it. That was pretty funny. Face first. But after she has her little tantrum, she runs out of the room. And all the rest of us were like, well, that was something. And I had a sense that the host felt bad for her. Because she's just a child, you know. She's just here to have some fun, and to be the first person eliminated, that sucks. So the host definitely felt bad about it. You could see it on his face. Or maybe he was just making that face to make it dramatic for the rest of us. But me, in the dream, I was thinking, you're the first person eliminated on a game show. Big whoop. Someone's got to get eliminated first. It just sucks that it happened to be you. But it had to be someone, You're just a big old crybaby. Get over it. But the thing is, she was still the biggest standout to me mentally. Everybody else, I mean, there were some baddies in the room, don't get me wrong. I remember there were some tall, thick women in there. But Bella's the one I remember the most by far, just because of how uncomfortable she made me feel. Anyway, fast forward a bit. All of us normal people, we're just chilling and hanging out. And then we do this odd challenge where, yeah, by the way, there's another time skip. We time skip to a challenge where there's this okay, ooh, wait, no. There's an event that happened before that, sorry. Recollection of dreams, the memories get all twisted. So there was this party we were having, right? All of us contestants. And we were just, dancing, having a good time with the music. And then out through the door comes Bella. And she's in this really cool looking black dress with a black bob cut instead of blonde hair. And she has a different facial expression this time. And she looks she reminded me of a skinny tween version of, I was gonna say London Tipton because I'm gonna say London Tipton because I don't know the actress's actual name. I forgot her name. But she reminded me of that. She didn't look exactly like her, but she looked like her. And then she walks into the room all strutting and posed up. I don't think anybody in the room really notices or cares that much. Maybe some people see her, maybe they don't. I didn't really remember. But she comes up to the host and she pushes him down and starts cuddling on him. And then there's a time skip after that. The host didn't really seem to like that. He looked kind of uncomfortable, definitely didn't reciprocate the feelings. And it's weird that she went after a host and not one of the contestants. So anyway, we fast forward again. For some reason, I'm lying on a bed with two other dudes, fully clothed, by the way. And I'm just chilling and having a good time. You see, no, I was gonna do some analysis, but I'll do that later. I'm just chilling on the bed, just in casual conversation. I asked the guy who was like lying with, or one of the guys who was lying with me. I asked like, "Hey, what college did you go to?" Even though we're supposed to be like teenagers in the dream, I guess not. I guess we all grew up. The dream doesn't really follow its continuity very well. And he said, "Oh, I go to I think Hill University." And I was like, "Cool. I go to so and so." And then fast forward again, and we're doing this weird challenge. All of us contestants were like, there's this shelf, shelves in like restaurants where the waiters like bring around food, and they're typically like really gray. Yeah, we had a golden version of that shelf. It was like sparkly. All the shelves were so sparkly. And all of us contestants had to like stack ourselves up in the cart, which was apparently big enough to hold entire humans in the shelves. And then what we would do is wheel it out next to another shelf with a person in it and go pew 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 pew. But we didn't have like actual guns. We just brought our hands out and made the motion and said pew to the person in the other shelf. And then everybody gets on the shelf, right? Everybody or somebody starts wheeling us towards the other shelf, right? And I hop on the back of the shelf. I'm like stepping on different shelves and like grabbing onto it upright because I'm cool like that. I'm like the one guy hanging off the side. And then we wheel around to the shelf with the person in it. And then we all go pew, 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 pew. And then in that shelf is Bella. And she's like blonde again with her like, oh yeah, I forgot if I said that she had like a doll dress on. But she's just lying there, kind of like doll faced again. Or not like, it's more like, her face is just static. And we all go pew, 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 pew. And then everybody else stops saying pew for some reason. And I keep going pew, 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 pew. And I don't even notice that everybody else stopped saying pew to her. What was the meaning of all that? What was the challenge exactly? I don't know. But I think it was definitely fun being wheeled around in that cart and going pew, pew, pew. But anyway, after that, we're coming up close to the end of the TV show. Yeah. Well, I don't know if we're on TV, but we're getting close to the end of the dating game. So another time skip, and a lot of us contestants are buying items like a I don't know, I guess you could think of it like Valorant. We're buying items for the final round. And all of us contestants have this huge list of items to choose from. I don't remember any of the items except for one at the bottom of the list. It was this golden donut looking thing. And it was called the Jamboree. Jambor and then AE instead of EE. And I asked some disembodied voice, not the host, but some disembodied voice. What does this do? And the disembodied voice said, this Jamboree lets you have a conversation with another person. And the other person will be sitting there as your listener as you speak. And I was like, oh, so you just use this to pair up with someone? I mean, okay, I guess that's helpful if you really want to be with someone. And you see, I think everyone around me in the room, while they were buying items or thinking about what items to get, they were all involved in their own personal conversations. So there was just a bunch of noise around me while I was on the item board looking at all the selections. And I said, I don't want the Jamboree. I'll wait for a girl to buy it so that she could get with me. I'll just wait for someone else to use it on me so I don't have to spend the money. and then I didn't get the jamboree. Now, I'm thinking, no, that's part of the analysis part. All right, now fast forward again, and we're at the final couple pairing. Everybody gets their pair. I think there's like marriage ceremonies for everybody. And I end up not getting a pair, I think. And instead of walking up the aisle to get married to a person, like all the other people did, or at least a bunch of the other people did. I don't know if there were any other losers like me. There might have been. Instead of walking towards the aisle, I walked towards the opposite direction, where I found Bella. But not like the human Bella. It was an actual doll, like the size of a Barbie doll. I crouch down and I pick her up from like a pillow, I think, like a ring bearer's pillow. That detail is very fuzzy. I'm not so sure about that, but that's like the sense I got from it. And she was a real motionless doll this time. And then the dream like changed reality so that she'd have a completely different design. Instead of being just a normal, creepy looking like porcelain doll, she became this arrangement of candy. She had like a bunch of candy noodles all around her, and her face was like full of Smarties. And then she had like Parmesan cheese, literally Parmesan cheese all around her, and she looked like a cone. So she was like a cone, but it was like a dress sort of thing. It was really weird. It was a cone dress made of colorful candy, and then her head was kind of made of Smarties. And then in the dress, there was also like Parmesan cheese. And another person was telling me while I was holding this doll, oh, she doesn't look good. It looks so bad. And I was like, no, no, no. I see the vision. I see what she's going for. See all the Parmesan cheese in the dress that's supposed to be like sparkles to make things magical. And the other person said, it still looks bad. It definitely does. And I was like, no, yeah, I see why you get that. Or I see why you think that. The colors, you see on the colors on the dress, I'm telling the other person this. The colors on the dress are just so desaturated, They're not as bright and colorful. And then I turn back towards the aisle. I walk up the aisle, and next to like the stage where the bride and the groom are supposed to be standing, there's this, or at the bottom of the stairs leading up to the stage, there's a pack of Smarties. And I pick up the bag of Smarties and I'm like, yeah, look at this. The colors are so much more saturated here. They're so much more bright. Now, this is what she should have done. This is what she should have done with her dress and her design. And then I walk back over to Bella. And then her face is full of Smarties, right? But like really big Smarties for some reason. So I take some Smarties from her face and start eating them. Because like, why not? It's candy. And then after that, I look back at the podium and see everyone's gone. Or at least all the contestants. Maybe there's some people in the room, some people in the crowd maybe walking around. But in terms of contestants, the only people left in the room are me and Bella, if Bella even counts as a person at this point. And that's when I realized I ended up with Bella. That was my pair. Now, that's where the dream ends. I ended up with Bella at the end, and not even a human Bella. It was just a doll. And that's when I realized that throughout the dream, I think I was thinking this in bed, or maybe even during the dream. I was thinking, I don't remember making any real, deeper, meaningful connections with any of the humans here. All I was doing was making these surface level friendships and having fun. And I definitely could have tried to go for a deeper conversation. And there were plenty of baddies to go around. But I never even tried that. The only thing that I was really focused on was how weird Bella was in the dream. And also just chilling and having fun with my friends, the other contestants on the show. And in the end, at the wedding ceremony, when I looked back up on the podium and didn't see any of the contestants, and I realized I didn't get a partner who was a human, at first I thought, oh, dang, I didn't end up with a partner. But then after that, I was like, whatever. I never really tried to get a partner anyway in the first place. I don't think a partner was ever really what I wanted. And in the end, I didn't end up with a partner, but I ended up with art. I ended up with a piece of art in my hands, not a person. And that wraps up this video in a nice little bow. You see, in that recording, I went on and on afterward about how this dream pertains to my own mental state and my own personal beliefs. But I don't want this video to be about me. I want it to be about the story and what the story I wanted to analyze some of the themes of the story. But I didn't want to connect it very strongly back to me, because I don't think that's as interesting. I have my own personal journal videos, but I don't want this video to be like those. I wanted it to be like a story, you know? So that'll do it for this story. Hope that was at least mildly interesting. I don't know if it was a better use of 20 minutes or a worse use of 20 minutes than usual. You be the judge. Let me know in the comment section below. Hit like and subscribe if you liked it. Hit dislike and unsubscribe if you didn't like it. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Wow.